For Miss Linda Alvarado.
Do I have his address so I can find him later? You're going to think I'm older than I am, because it sounded like the obituary. I want to thank Mike. I want to thank all of you, and I can't thank Alex and for his leadership. The staff that's here, you and I show up, eat, drink, be merry. They organize everything, and the countless hours that have been put into doing this. So I think the staff needs to stand up and be recognized. People think I'm from Colorado. I am not. I'm from New Mexico. Once you're a New Mexican, no matter where you go, you're a New Mexican. You don't have to have a Hispanic last name. You could be Native American. You could be an other, whatever an other is. A mother, a father, a daughter, a sister. But over time, like when I was in Istanbul, somebody came up and talked to me, had a Hispanic last name. Gee, I'm from New Mexico too. What's your cousin's name? My family was Lujan, Sandoval, Duran, O'Brien, Winship. We're all family. Is it because nobody saw us on the map? No, it's because we continue to outperform, exceed expectations, and come together in organizations that are not just focused on Latinos, not just focused on women, not just focused on a specific industry, but focused on the development, the betterment, and more than that, as Americans, the economic empowerment of America. And that's what the Hispanic Chamber does. I'm supposed to talk a little bit about my background. Let me just clarify, Mike. I'm one of the founding members of the Hispanic Chamber in Denver, but I am not the oldest member of that chamber. And Albuquerque can stand tall because the leadership and the founding of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber started here in New Mexico. These were started by people who had a dream about just not their own ambition, their own careers, their own family, but the idea that you have to stand up, you have to get involved in order to make a difference. I don't know if we're having this celebration because it's Hispanic Heritage Month. I just think it's the timing because, in my opinion, 365 days are Hispanic Heritage Days in this country. And the involvement, the diversity, and the ability of our community is reflected and recognized not just on 30 days of the year. So I want to thank you for supporting this, but I don't want to diminish what you're doing. You can stand up again. You have better hair than I do. Come on. I'm under too much pressure. I'm not used to combing my hair. I wear a hard hat for most days. It's very bad because once you put it on, your makeup goes away from there on. And I'm forced to wear a baseball cap. While we're a very, very close community, we're very, very diverse. I was asked to speak at Goldman Sachs, and the other two speakers, one was Judy Missick, who was the founder of Jazzercise, and the other one was Susie Orman. And then there was a contractor. So people come up afterwards to Judy and they said, oh my God, I got involved in your program. Look at me, I've lost 25 pounds. My husband's taking me to Paris for my anniversary. Susie Orman, they come up to, I reallocated my 401k. I diversified my investments. I did what you said. I formed a trust. And I'm continuing to make contributions to my IRA, not just my 401k. Thank you. Then they come up to talk to me. I just had my bedroom remodeled. They opened up the roof above the kitchen as well, and then they didn't show up the following Monday. Of course, it's the second week in September, and that's the first day of deer hunting, and nobody goes to work on that Monday. And when we went in, they were done. We tried to open the windows, and they were painted closed. We went into the bathroom. It was a little cold, and we hadn't turned on the heater yet. And we went in. I sat down to use the toilet, and there was steam coming up out of the toilet bowl. She asked me, what do I really think about that? And I told her, well, quite frankly, we would normally charge extra for that. I know we have the honorables, but I would like to hope someday somebody calls their contractor the honorable. When people ask me what I do if I'm on airplanes, and while I say I have a second home or a first home, I'm never in those homes. I live on United Airlines because that's what I have to do, and I have to go where the work is. And people typically introduce themselves and they say, what you do? And if I tell them what I really do as a commercial general contractor, it leads to a whole list of who, why, when, how, huh? So if I'm really busy, I tell them I work for a mortuary, and somehow I don't get any more questions. But it's the stereotype of kind of not what we expect, but conventional thinking of what and how people have evolved. And yes, when I grew up, I didn't think I'd ever grow up to be a commercial general contractor. I've been mistaken for a realtor, an attorney, the secretary very often. And one Saturday when I was in my office wearing Levi's Colorado Rockies hat and tennis shoes, I was mistaken for the cleaning woman. But nobody ever comes and say, gee, aren't you that contractor? And while we smile in agreement, those types of traditional stereotypical thinking, no matter where you came from, we all have ideas and perceptions, really have in many ways polarized our communities into silos, but that diversity and that American dream has enabled us to change that. When I started flying on airplanes, I flew in first class, no other women, no other Hispanics. I got on there and I was reading the Wall Street Journal, and the flight attendant came over and talked to me and said, do you need some help, understanding and reading this? And I said, no, I'm okay. She says, oh, Alvarado, are you from Costa Rica? I said, no, I'm from New Mexico. She was looking at my Major League World Series ring, and it says CR on it, so she thought I was from Costa Rica. She was trying to be friendly, but it was funny. I grew up here. I was born here. My mother's family's been in New Mexico since before it was New Mexico, El Norte. And they had and still have land in what was then called the Mora land grants. El Rito, Chacon, let's get together and we'll figure out how we're all related in this room somehow. My dad's from California, and both of their parents were Protestant missionaries. You say, how could that be? Okay, first of all, this girl is a güera, fair-skinned. She's got blue eyes. She's a vegetarian, contractor, and a Protestant. But many of the churches came down and they built schools, hospitals, right? Churches as well, and the Presbyterians came, and it was about literacy. And literacy, and I never knew growing up that Manal was named after a Presbyterian missionary. Never knew that growing up. I knew that my family had gone to Manal, and so forth. But understanding how people come together, as was described earlier, to come together as communities to assist. Not because we look alike, think alike, act alike. It's because this is what makes us who we are. The American dream was not a dream. The American people took action on those dreams. It's sitting around the tables here. It's people who are doing the media. It's the people who have brought you the meals today, looking for ways and looking for opportunities that in fact have eluded us, and certainly in many ways eluded our parents and grandparents, regardless of ethnicity, because of income, low income, lack of education in many cases. And what has changed that is innovation and people coming together like we're doing here to more than just eat and drink and have dessert, but to come together to put the brain trust together. And quite frankly, diversity sometimes has been missing. I grew up, started on off of 2nd Street in Headingley. There was no high desert. There was arroyos that came down. There was no flood control. So I thought every summer everybody went to the school for summer vacation. It was the Red Cross that assisted and helped out. And while I smile and say that, my parents were very focused. I never knew I was a minority. Did you? I never knew we were poor, however you describe that. My mother and father were cool because they didn't discourage me from doing, quote, non-traditional things. Believe me, when you have 5 brothers and no sisters, it's all about sports. And if you have a ball and 6 kids, you got a team. It was interesting because culturally, we have conflicts in many ways. And you can imagine my mother trying to explain to her friends that her daughter grew up to be a contractor. And you can imagine my husband from California and his mother-in-law, mi suegra, my mother-in-law, trying to explain to her friends that her husband had moved to Colorado and married a contractor. They thought we were both a little strange. But positive thinking, everybody says, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, you gotta do this. I was not trying to make a statement in my career path, nor whether it's a feminist statement or to be the first, this, that, and the other. I just wanted to pursue something. So I thought everybody built forts in their backyard, okay, and had erector sets. I used to want a sister, but now I'm scared of them. Because I don't know how to dress, comb, and there's a shoe competition all the time among us. But my mother, I went to La Luz, started at La Luz. I went to Aztec as we moved up out of the floodplain, which was then the far eastern reaches of nothing, and now look at it today. And I wanted to get involved in Girls Sports Day. And this was the end of the year, they have Sports Day. And that's where you get involved in activities, athletic activities, and so forth, and a few snacks. So I wanted to sign up for the high jump, and the coach told me I couldn't. So I went home, and my mother said, "What's wrong?" Hita, what's wrong? I said, "Well, you know, I wanted to sign up for the high jump, and, you know, I've been doing this in the backyard forever and ever. I could back jump over our, remember Pillsbury Flop? You do, okay? I could do that over our backyard fence." She said, "Let's go." I said, "Where are we going?" She says, "Let's go." I said, "Where are we going? We don't have a car." Okay, we went to school. We're going to go see the principal. So she walks in there and she says, "Señor Blanco." Now that doesn't refer to his skin, even though his name was Mr. His name was Mr. White, and when I say that, it sounds racial. It's just pure translation. He's 6'8". I met somebody the other day who remembers Mr. White, so I'm not making this up. He's 6'8". My mother's 4'11", and here I am, 3'2". And she says, "Señor Blanco, Linda really wants to do the high jump. Can we let her do it?" She said, No, Mrs. Martinez. It's okay. You don't understand. It's lots of fun. The girls get to do tetherball. They get to do dodgeball. They get to, do all kinds of things. but not high jump, that's for boys. And she said, but Linda knows how to high jump. And he said, no. So she tells him, think about it. So we go home, and I'm going, oh. So we have a quesadilla and agua. And she says, Linda, you've got to raise your hand. You've got to ask. And just because you think you may be good or have potential, don't assume that people are going to naturally come to you. I said, oh yeah. 2 weeks later, I'm home having quesadillas and water. We did have milk, I just didn't like it. Now that I'm older, I drank liquor. She said, okay, are we signed up for the high jump? Did he change his mind? I said, no. She says, let's go. I said, where are we going? She said, let's go. So I figure I'm a marked kid. I'll never be able to be a marked woman. I'm done. I'm just straight. So she goes in, Senor Blanco, again, and they're going, and I'm going, oh. He says, okay. She says, where does it say girls cannot do this? He says, you don't understand. This is the tradition. She says, well, why don't we just try it? So finally, I think he was afraid of another repeat visit. He said, okay. So I participated. I was the only girl in the high jump, and I won. I still have the ribbon, by the way. Aztec, I won't tell you what year, but Aztec ribbon. This story is not about me. This story is about my mother. This story is about the people around this room. This story is about opening doors for others. And it's not always simply by writing a check, buying a table, signing up to do something, or becoming a member. It's about standing up, doing things. Ethics without breaking the rules. As my mother would say, you gotta stand up. Mijita, start small, but think big. The military agrees with that. So, in the context of talking about myself, I'm a little bit hesitant, and I'll tell you some stories. I have many, many stories, mentiras también, which are lies, But my parents had high expectations for us, not because we were well-to-do, well-connected, or aristocracy. There were expectations set. School was important. Church, academics. Again, unfortunately, they didn't have scholarships for women for wrestling at the time. My brothers went, but I still know how to put people in a half Nelson. I found it very helpful during difficult negotiations with my clients. The fourth thing they said was, you gotta get involved. And we're saying, what do you mean get involved? You gotta get involved to help others. Okay, I'm under 10, I'm not sure what to do. She said, we join organizations to help people. Okay? So whether it was church or nonprofit or I was never a Girl Scout. I've been on the Boy Scout board, but I never was a Girl Scout. But being a member of something, whether it's a chamber or an organization, a business, a government entity, anybody can be a member. You gotta step up and assume leadership positions. Otherwise, you're just a member. And are you really contributing? My younger brother and I hate to mention his name because you may know him. He's the district attorney in Valencia, Sandoval, and Cibola, Leno Martinez. I know, I have blackmail pictures of him with his panza sticking out. We went door to door, little business. He did the talking, imagine that, he became an attorney and elected official. I did the brochures, and we said, can we rake your lawn? Can we mow the grass? Can we sweep the patio? And my mother said, what we were to do is make money, not to open a bank account. that the investment here was not in a bank account. The investment here was in our character. And those are the things that have made a difference in America. It's not about the charitable contribution write-off that we get. Might influence you a bit. It's about reinvesting. I'm sitting and standing here today not because anybody would have ever given me a chance in the world, a Hispanic woman trying to be a contractor. That is a double negative. Bad enough Hispanic woman. Ooh. But I would tell myself that even in math, when you multiply two negatives, you get a positive. It is how you perceive it, how you approach it, and quite frankly, are you willing to get into the game, take some risks, and do that? My parents, I can't thank enough. But more than that, it wasn't just straight A's in school or whatever it is we were doing. It was people in the community that were advocating, that were increasing the opportunities to elevate information. So whether it was the newspaper publications, the schools, making sure that we got involved. And when I say we, who is we? We is me and all of thee. It's a biblical term. Have you looked at the paper yesterday? This is the Albuquerque Journal. APS, retention bill costly. There's a good one here. Duke City shows a healthy output. There's some about murder, I'll skip those. APS, third grade retention bill costly. Immigration licenses dropped 57%. I'm just doing some of the big ones here. Here's another one about the legislature. Redistricting gets into gear. Compromise sought on jobless fund. Senator proposes a small rate cut. SAT reading scores to drop the lowest on record level. And this one really depressed me. It says the results reflect the record size and diversity of the pool of test takers is become bigger, not smaller. It is not about diversity of ethnicity, it's about the American education levels. Okay, let me go quickly here. Here's one on the editorial page. It's by Ruben Navarrete. Anti-Hispanic hysteria won't stop the love of our nation. Last one. New Mexico can remove its own obstacles to economic future full of promise. And on the back page, Obama pushes job bill. We cannot be observers. We need to be participants. It is about not the past of how we got here. And quite frankly, I am not willing to accept that my children and my grandchildren someday, hopefully, will have a lower standard of living, will be less educated, less competitive, and less able to do. You don't think we worked this hard to get to this place to go backwards, do you? But if you read it and you accept it, we can't do that. So whether you're a member of the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, the Tea Party, or the Tequila Party, we've got to stay involved. I can't tell you the solutions to all of this, but reading about it instead of getting involved in this is not how we got here today. I am so proud of the fact that I am invited to speak here, and I won't even go into the Wall Street Journal, although I will mention yesterday it said, "Hola, P&G seeks Latino shoppers." Are they focused, corporate America, on Latinos, not just as consumers, but as providers of goods, services, business opportunities? And that's the talent pool that America has. I say this not because I'm Hispanic, it's the reality of what's changing. In my career, I didn't look the part. First of all, my last name was Martinez. Hispanic before I even showed up, so the stereotype was there. And then when I showed up, I didn't look the part. Blue eyes, güera. We have stereotypes, they work both ways. The reality is, how do we bring diversity in communities together? And the example I like to use, and I can't go through my entire career, I started curb, gutter, and sidewalk. I started in college. I needed a job week to week. I went to college in California, which was a cultural shock for my parents as a Hispanic girl. Even more so when my dad found out there were co-ed dorms. And I remember the woman telling him, don't worry, they're all co-ed, which made him feel a lot better. And I needed a job. So I went to go apply. Now they're on the internet, but they posted on the bulletin board, food service, library, groundskeeping. I didn't know much about food service because my mother said my job was to study. And my husband Robert, when I told him, it only took us 5.5 years. I'll tell you the story a little bit later on how I met him, but it only took 5.5 years. I told him, you know, you understand who my parents and my grandparents were, I cannot use 4-letter words. He said, oh, no, I understand that. What he didn't understand it was cook, iron, dust, wash. I show up, the guy says, what are you doing here? I said, I really need a job. I'm from New Mexico, and, you know, my parents, you know, I really need a job. And I was there on an academic scholarship, but it wasn't enough to buy toothpaste and everything else you needed. He said, do you not understand? Girls do food service, boys do landscaping, and he sent me to my college advisor for counseling. 2 weeks later, I came back. It reminds me a little bit of my mother. And he said, what are you doing here? And I said, I really need a job. I'm spending all this time in the library. I really am not good at food service. I don't think I can do this. He says, do you not understand? You're not going to be able to wear those shoes. We already aerate with other material. Those spikes. Okay. You're going to be outside all the time. You're going to be lifting heavy stuff, and you're going to be working with all these guys. And I said, to myself, let me get this right. I get to wear Levi's to work every day. I don't have to go to the gym. I'm going to get a tan. And you paid me to work with all these single men? And it wasn't naivete, because you can understand that it wasn't a feminist statement that I was making. I needed the money. But it was the opportunity that each of us are doing in our own ways, regardless of your background, to open doors. Quite frankly, had another woman did it, I probably wouldn't have had the problem. I didn't look the part when I started curb and gutter and sidewalk. When I was on the sites, they thought I was the boss's girlfriend, mistress, secretary, toilet cleaner. Could have been all of the above. Various pictures of me in Sanilettes. This is before the requirements for separate restroom facilities for men and women. Why would you need them on construction sites? And there would be pictures of me in various stages of undress, which were depressing. But sometimes the picture was not that bad. And I would tell myself, my hair really looked pretty good in that one, and then I was wearing a hard hat so they know I'm OSHA compliant. And it's not creating this illusion about what you can or can't do, but making sure that my own perception does not get clouded by other people's lack of vision. And the visionaries in this room are amazing. I tell one baseball story because we all need to go to work here. And Major League Baseball isn't going to cancel the game tonight and delay it for me. We have honoring our teams. I got involved in baseball no different than construction. I never thought that I would ever be a baseball owner. The governor of Colorado at the time called me up. This is 18 years ago. I was a child. And when an elected official calls you up, typically you have to write a check. I just didn't know what the size of the check was. But Colorado had been trying to get a baseball team for 30 years. We were trying to get the A's to come because the A's had no idea what they were doing. We were trying to recruit. Couldn't do it. But there had not been, this was in 1992, there had not been an expansion in baseball since 1976. Baseball is not a business. It's not governed by antitrust, so you just can't start up your own baseball team. On the other hand, be assured we're audited by the IRS every year because of revenue sharing. So got together with 5 guys and a girl, which is kind of the story of my life, to pursue this. And I went home and told my husband, and he said, "You want to do what?" I said, "You know, it's either that or I want to invest the money in my own cable cooking show." And he thought, well, maybe this would be less risky in that regard. I had met him at a wedding, and he invited me to go to a baseball game, a Dodgers game. This was in Los Angeles, not in Brooklyn. I'm not that old. It was Los Angeles. And he told me later he had decided to marry me that night. I said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "No, really?" And I thought about it, and I said, well, okay, maybe my charm, my looks, my personality, my sense of humor. He said, "No, none of those." I said, "What?" He's told me that I was the only girl he had ever taken to a baseball game who put onions on her hot dogs. And he said, "This is the one." I can assure you, I was putting onions on those hot dogs because I had absolutely, positively no intention of kissing this guy. Now, if he wants to sit in the front row, he has to be a little bit nicer to me. The reason of baseball, and let me use this analogy as we get to closure here, is what we have worked for in America is opportunity. And in baseball, we celebrate Jackie Robinson being the first African-American player. But understand, in the Negro Leagues, they weren't just Negroes, they were Latinos. And because of the color of their skin, they played in the Negro Leagues. Interestingly enough, that changed. Branch Rickey, who was then the general manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers, was recognized as someone who was very involved in social causes, very, very good person. But he was also an astute business person. And diversity changed the game. It increased the fan base. It increased the revenues. It increased sales of just about everything. And it didn't just increase the players' salaries that came up from the Negro Leagues. It increased every player's salaries because of television revenues, radio revenues, and so forth. And you look at Latinos on the field. And one of the reasons I got involved is because my dad was a catcher, and he used to let me go between innings and clean the plate. And that's the only plate I know how to clean. But what you look at, and people tell me, and I'll close with these 2 items, is, Linda, you gotta understand, Latinos, you guys, you're just good at baseball. African Americans, they're just good at basketball. You're not helping me. Women, they're just good at everything. But in baseball, there is not one player, and I have to acknowledge Larry Pacheco, stand up, because your nephew has scored 2 runs for us. We brought him up to the big leagues, and 2 homers. Latinos dominate, but I can assure you there is not one Latino player on that field that's there to fill a percentage, check a box, or demonstrate our commitment to diversity. They are playing there, and they got there because in baseball, unlike many other occasions, the bases are always the same distance apart. Everybody gets 3 strikes and 4 balls, and even if you strike out, you get another turn at bat. And what the chamber and organizations are advocating for, if we're going to go forward with our, not goal, but the American dream, sustaining and increasing it, is level that playing field, equal access to education, equal access to capital, equal access, no guarantees, just the opportunity to try. I spoke at my son's kindergarten class, and it was career day. You guys are a lot calmer than they were. They were biting and kicking. although Alex, I noticed, got a little out of control there for a while. And two parents came. One was a nurse, and one was a contractor. So I brought my hard hat, my blueprints, I brought BlackBerry, brought a laptop, talked about 3D modeling and all kinds of stuff. The nurse was a father. Wow, cool. So the teacher said, after the program, Rob, when you grow up, don't you want to be a contractor like your mother? You can build high-rises and stadiums and prisons. And he said, no. And she said, no? I mean, this is huge. And he said, no, that's women's work. We're making progress. Interestingly enough, the father's story was very similar to mine. Being the first, being the only, is hard to do. But if I remain the first and the only, that is not what we're here to do. And that's what this organization is about. We come from very diverse backgrounds. And whether you grew up eating lima beans, red beans, black beans, baked beans, green beans, pinto beans, the reality is we have more in common than we have differences. You and I cannot wait to read the paper or America to change. You and I must change America. God, in her wisdom, gave us, created us with two ends. It's up to us to decide which part of our anatomy we'll use. In my opinion, heads you win, tails you lose.
Ladies and gentlemen, what an incredible speech. Linda Alvarado, thank you. Alex Romero and Andrew Baca would like to now present a gift to Linda.
Thank you, Linda, for a wonderful speech. We really enjoyed that. So we wanted to present to you a gift here. A beautiful mirror, and it's from a company called AHCC here in Albuquerque. They're a member of the Albuquerque Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And thank you very much for that.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's activities. We'd like to thank Bank of the West. If the bear on the table is pointing towards you, it's yours to keep. So again, thank you to Bank of the West. Also, Masks y Mas for the wonderful gifts and centerpieces. You can also purchase those. Thank you to Kiko. Action Audio and technical staffers for the AV, the Sheraton Albuquerque Airport Hotel staff, and of course, all of you. Once again, thank you for making the Albuquerque Hispanic Chamber of Commerce one of the most powerful chambers in the entire country. Linda Alvarado, thank you. To each and every one of you and all our sponsors, thank you once again.